From Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service. We operate the whole of Hampshire really, and I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about equality and diversity and how we do things in our service. So what I'm going to firstly say is these are the kind of the opinions of Hampshire Fire and Rescue and how they approach equality and diversity. I don't pretend to be textbook about everything I say, and equally, when people are asking questions at the end, we're not going to kind of tell you off for using the wrong phrases or anything, so please feel free to ask questions and I'll hopefully be able to explain them. So first of all, just doing a bit of stuff on what is equality and diversity and kind of stereotypes and a bit of prejudice really. So your view of Hampshire Fire and Rescue, what does it mean to you? So when you see those words, what do you think? Show of hands or someone give their opinion? Firefighters. Okay, so that's the stereotypical image of what you view Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service as. So when James said someone from Hampshire Fire and Rescue was coming in today, did you expect a man? Did you expect a woman? Did you expect someone in uniform? Did you expect someone in smart clothes? So this is our Chief Officer, John Bonney. Did you expect him to come today? The reality is that there's actually a lot of other jobs and a lot of other people that make up our workforce. It's not just the stereotypical firefighters. So, equality and diversity, what actually is it? So, equality is about creating a fairer society where everyone can participate and has the opportunity to fulfill their potential. So, it's equal opportunities for everyone, no matter kind of who you are, where you come from, or anything like that. What's diversity? Diversity is understanding that everyone has similarities and differences and respecting them. So how do we put that into practice within Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service? Why do we do it? Firstly, there's a legal framework. I don't know how much you know about this, but there's something called the Equality Act 2010 that kind of governs what kind of every organisation does, and especially what public services do. The difference between a private company, someone like BP or Esso or something like that, and public services is that we actually have a duty to promote equality. Other businesses don't. They can choose to take it on and develop it how they want, whereas we have to actively promote it. There's also an equality standard for local government that we have to adhere to. So they set out what they want to see, and every public service organisation should follow that. And then the Fire and Rescue Service as a whole, so it's not just Hampshire, it's UK-wide. So you've got Kent, you've got Buckinghamshire, you've got other forces that we work with. There's a national equality and diversity strategy within that we have to follow and that we feed back into. So why do it? As I said before, what's the point? Why employ someone like me to come into the workforce and talk about equality and diversity? This is a guy from one of our leaflets. It's about getting relationships right in the workplace. It's about the way to getting relationships right in the wider community. So we think by building ourselves as a team, a strong team, that will then, when we go out into the wider community, be more of a diverse workforce, and we should be able to relate to everyone better. If our workforce were all male and they went out to a house fire involving, say, a woman that lives alone, is that representing her? Can she relate to us as a service? And will she take on our advice and what we think she should do to make her life safer? This is something to think about. Who do you relate to? Is it your parents? Is it a male role model? Is it a female role model? Or is it someone else? So, by making a stronger workforce and a more diverse workforce, studies have shown that it gives us a higher level of performance. Staff perform better when they are themselves. I'm sure you'll know if you go into a situation where you've got other things going on in your mind about what you can say and what you can't say, it probably increases the amount of barriers that you have, and it doesn't make you be yourself. When people are themselves, they perform better. So when people perform better, they've got increased productivity. So as a public service, we're funded by the government. They give us money to do what we feel fit. So productivity, we need to make sure that the money they pay us, we are efficient with it. And basically it comes down to our workforce being happy, informed and interested. So this is kind of a flow diagram of why we do it. So by having a stronger workforce, we can provide better services for our communities. So it's not just fighting fires, it's about education as well. It's about me coming in today, it's about other people going into other services, so social services, arsons, things like that. There's a range of different things that we get involved in. It's not just turning up to a 999 call. So by providing a better service, it makes people's lives safer. By making people's life safer, we reduce the risk of it happening again, because people learn from their mistakes. This enhances our reputation, because within Hampshire we should see that the amount of fires and the amount of incidences go down. So the amount of people affected by fire dramatically reduces. And then hopefully this will attract the very best talent into Hampshire. So they'll see how we work and they'll want to be part of it, which again then will feed back into providing better services for our community by having the right people in the right jobs. So how do we do it? That all sounds really good, but how do we actually do it within Hampshire Fire and Rescue? We have something called the Corporate Quality Plan. So something that looks like this. This is the last year's one, or last 3 years one. We've now updated it into something that looks like this. So this is basically our statement that gives a realistic action plan for each and every member of the service. So it makes it quite practical. What can they do on a daily basis to increase equality and diversity and make their team stronger? So it's reviewed every 3 years, and we're building on the last 3 years to go into the next 3 years. So 2009 to 2012, what did we think it meant for us? Basically it meant different people with equal value. So that's kind of what equality and diversity was always seen as. Different people, equal value, and it was very much kind of going on kind of protected characteristics, which is what they call them. So we were meeting people's specific needs from certain protected characteristics. So what do I mean by protected characteristics? It's about these boxes at the front. The government say that these are the characteristics that can potentially make people vulnerable, and as a service we need to address why these people would be vulnerable and what we can do to help them and reduce the risk of fire. So disability. The kind of definition of disability: someone with a physical or mental impairment, that person has the specific rights to protect them against discrimination. So employers and service providers are obliged to make relevant adjustments under certain circumstances. This protection also extends to people's carers. Gender. Men, women should not be treated unfairly because of their gender, because they're married or because they're bringing up a family. Everyone should be treated equally. Age. So whether you're young, whether you're old, whether you're middle-aged, whether that comes to applying for the fire service, whether that comes to retiring, whichever scale it's on, you shouldn't be discriminated against within age. Race. Another one is sexual orientation. So whether one is straight, gay, lesbian, bisexual, should not put them at a disadvantage within our service or being within our county and their access to fire and safety things. The law protects them against discrimination in the workplace, including harassment and on grounds of sexual orientation. So another one is religion. Religion or belief should not interfere with anybody's right to be treated fairly at work, at school, in shops, or while accessing public services, such as healthcare or housing. Transgender. So I don't know how much you guys know about this. This is kind of a relatively new thing to the Equalities Act, really. equality for those living as the opposite sex to that on their birth certificate. So it doesn't matter whether you're male, female, whatever, you are treated equally within our service. So that's always what we went on, so putting people in boxes basically. So hopefully it's going to be a bit of interaction with you now rather than me just talking. So what do we mean by putting people in boxes and using these protected characteristics? So here's Claire, she's female. So just from that, which of these boxes do you think Claire would fit into? Gender? Who said gender? Come on up to the front. So Claire is female. Just from those 2 bullet points, Claire is female. So going from the protected characteristics, do you want to put Claire in the gender box? Cool, thank you very much. So, on to the next profile. Profile 2. This is Ben. Ben's 18. From those 2 bullet points again, what box would you put Ben into? Age. Who wants to come up and put Ben in the box? Someone shouted it out.
Go on, Ben.
Okay, so that's pretty simple. We've got 2 profiles, 2 boxes out of those 7 protected characteristics. That's brilliant. We've done what the government said, we've put them in the boxes. We now know what those people could be discriminated against. Now if we go on to Susie. Susie's 24. So again, I guess you could use age. She's relatively young. She could be discriminated against with age. Susie is also registered disabled. Susie also identifies as a lesbian. So now, looking at those 7 protected characteristics, which boxes, or box, would you put Susie in? Bearing in mind you have to choose one. What was that? What do you think is most important? Yeah, someone said something.
It was Mel.
Mel, what did you say?
Disabled, because she's
Disabled.
restricted on what she can do.
Cool. So do you want to come and put Mel in the disabled box? If you can get to the front. Cool. So Mel thinks that Susie.
Guys, shush.
Mel thinks that Susie goes best or fits more into the registered disabled box. Profile 4. Meet Sam. Sam's 40. He's worked for the fire service for 10 years. Sam's dyslexic. He's also Asian. And he identifies as Hindu. Now, what box would you put him in? Why did you say religion? You said religion. What would your reasons be for religion? Jordan. Why do you think he could go in the religion box? Someone definitely said it.
Because he's Hindu.
Do you think within Hampshire Fire and Rescue that would be one of his biggest issues, being Hindu?
People might take offence to him being a different religion to them.
It could do, yeah. So if we put him in the religion box, so can you see why it's actually quite difficult? Although these protected characteristics are good guidelines to allow us to do our jobs and to support those people that fit into these certain boxes, to some degree, there's people that will fit into more than one box. and we can't stereotype them into one box and supporting them in that specific way. So what it's about being kind of individual and respecting people's individualities and their differences. So that's what we did for the last 3 years, basically. We talked about the protected characteristics. The problem, as I just said, I don't know how well you can see this, but unless we see diversity as an issue for everyone, not just a skin colour issue, or a sexual preference issue, or a gender or an age thing, talking about diversity becomes flawed. If we can't collectively, that means all of us, buy into diversity as relating to us, as individuals, then it will never get respect. It will only be respected for the few, by the few. So what's that saying is, people that are in those boxes will respect it, whereas the people that aren't don't really have any involvement. So that's the problem for us. We want the whole workforce to buy into this and be equal and diverse in everything they do. So this is why we've kind of changed tack a little bit. So it always was equality and diversity, 7 protected characteristics. What we've now kind of steered towards is more inclusion. So it's about including everyone. It's not about labelling them as being Hindu or being a lesbian or other characteristics that we've just talked about. It's about inclusion. So inclusion for everyone. It's our ambition to create a truly inclusive workplace where everyone feels valued and respected. So, our vision for 2013-2015. As I said before, we build on what we've learned in the previous 3 years. So, it's to continue to get rid of unlawful discrimination, advance equal opportunities, as we said about going to more inclusivity rather than the protected characteristics, and encourage good relationships for everyone. That's both staff, that's in the community, and that's kind of the wider audience as well with other services. So this is where I kind of talk about what we do and how we will do it. So we are committed to the 4 kind of main vision aims for these next 3 years are encouraging people to take personal responsibility. So it's not us telling people what to do, it's about people in their jobs every day taking responsibility for how they go about things. If they go about things in a rude, kind of offensive manner, they need to be held responsible for that. It's just about everyone taking a bit of their own responsibility. It's about valuing each other in the workplace. Everyone's got something different to add, and it's about respecting that and valuing it to make your team stronger. It's also about involving each other. It's pointless having an 8-strong team with all different people in it if one person of that is slightly different and that person gets excluded. The irony of that is the one person that probably gets excluded probably has the most to offer because they're slightly different and they go about things from a different viewpoint, or they can add different things into the system. And finally, improving the way we provide services. So, personal responsibility, the way we behave, every individual is respected. It's about including others. It's about speaking up when things are inappropriate or you don't think things should be said in the way they are. It's about reporting and asking for support, which is where E&D and my department come in. It's about giving and receiving feedback, and to some degree, being a positive role model. If you look up to your manager within the service as being a positive role model and taking all these things into consideration, what are you going to do? Anyone got any ideas? So if your manager's a really good manager, you looked at him or her as a really good role model, what does that make you do in your day-to-day job? Work harder. Makes you work harder. It makes you work harder. Again, we're paying someone to do a job, it makes them do it more effectively. So, how do we facilitate this and how do we get everyone involved and make them realise the reasons for taking some personal responsibility? So, this is a video. So, we currently run something called Face to Face. And there's a little bit in your kind of task sheet about this. And it's about challenging people's views, about talking about it in an open and honest way, and kind of challenging some people's stereotypes. So here's a quick video. So that's what face-to-face is for us. So how else will we facilitate diversity and get people to take responsibility? All our senior managers are diversity champions. So that means in our senior leadership team, we have certain people that will take certain responsibilities for these 7 characteristics. We use them to kind of as the face of the project to promote and understand the issue a bit more. If someone's a firefighter out at station and we're at HQ, sometimes the messages can get a little bit lost in translation. Having a senior manager that stands up and says what we expect and how to go about promoting an issue, it gets people to communicate about it better, and it gives people kind of a role model to go with. So Dave Curry, who's our Deputy Chief Officer, is a senior figure. By using him, he can break down barriers, he can get things moving. He can challenge stereotypes. So from just those words, Dave Curry, Deputy Chief Officer. Would the stereotypical image be that he's got dyslexia? No, it's not. So someone that deals with policy on a day-to-day basis and about how the fire service works, Dave has dyslexia. So what he's done is use his role within the fire service to break down some barriers and break down some stereotypes. So, target the right audience in the right way. So, let me show you Dave's video.
My name's Dave Curry. I'm the Deputy Chief of Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service. I've been in the fire service for 25 years and I served in Surrey for 19 of those years up to Assistant Chief, and then moved over about 7 years ago to Hampshire, where I've been the Deputy Chief ever since, and currently in the role of Director of Service Delivery. I discovered I had dyslexia formally when I was about 30, just in my early 30s. I always knew since school that I had a problem with reading and spelling, and I didn't really ever take the time and thought about why I had such a problem. And all through academic studies, through my 20s, I struggled to get the results that I thought I should achieve from the learning and input that I put into place for those examinations. When I was around 30, I was doing a Masters in Business Administration, early 30s, and I decided then, on a prompt from another colleague actually, to go and be assessed, and found that I had a mild dyslexia. One of the points I would make though, and want to make, is I'm not an expert in dyslexia, but I understand that it is very different for different individuals, and therefore I think you can only speak on your perceptions of how you feel and the ability and disability that you have yourself. I find it limits my reading, so my reading skill as assessed is that of a 13-year-old, and therefore when I'm reading a document or somebody hands me a document to read, I'm about 2/3 of the way down the page when they've finished, or when they expect me to have finished that reading that piece. As well as things like standing in front of an audience with a flip chart and actually starting to spell words. Sometimes I'll get very stuck on a certain word, and I guess there's an expectation in my role that I would be able to spell in a certain way and read at a certain rate. The crucial way to cope is to acknowledge it and to find and seek some assistance. And I do feel for the amount of people that probably go through their whole lives thinking they can't read very well and they can't spell very well, and actually not acknowledging that they have dyslexia. Once you acknowledge it and you find out about how that dyslexia affects you, then you can start to put coping mechanisms into place. And crucially, the coping mechanism is to tell people, is to be open about it. So when I work in a new environment or meet new colleagues and I have to stand in front of a flip chart, or I'm in an area where I'm reading things, I'm very open to say, please give me a little bit more time. I have mild dyslexia, and therefore I might take a little bit extra time to read this certain document.
Cool. So basically what that's about, it's about positive role models. So it's about other people within the service that might have dyslexia. It's about saying that it's not going to hold them back. It's about getting the right support and getting the right kind of strategies in place to help them in their job. Everyone deserves an equal opportunity to do their job and do it to their best of their ability. So, another way that we facilitate this, people taking responsibility, is a grievance and disciplinary procedures. I know you've got quite a lot of this, well, some bits of this on your charts. So, grievance, I've shortened it to G there just because it wouldn't fit on, but grievance is an official statement of complaint over something believed to be wrong or unfair. It's something that any employee can take out, really, if they're having difficulties at work or people aren't kind of seeing things from their point of view and are actively kind of discriminating against them. It only happens when informal discussions have failed. What we kind of actively encourage that people approach their line managers about any difficulties they're having, and then we can help them. If they don't, as Dave said, be honest and open, we can't help them. So what is it? Basically it's in writing, it's about the nature of the complaint, what they feel isn't acceptable, and their suggested action. HR can then get involved if it's necessary. Once the grievance is kind of solved or